For nearly 2 decades, Amy Fleming has been the heart and soul of Heartland, guiding us through love, loss, and the unbreakable bond between family and horses. But in a jaw-dropping season 19 finale, everything fans thought they knew is about to be shattered. A shocking twist leaves Amy's fate hanging by a thread. Could this really be the end of her journey? What happens when the very character who kept Heartland together is suddenly gone? How will the Bartlett-Fleming family, and the fans who have followed her every step, move forward without her? This is the most emotional, game-changing moment in the show's history, and it's bound to leave viewers in disbelief. Brace yourself for a finale that no one saw coming, a moment that will redefine Heartland forever. Are you ready for the most heartbreaking twist yet? The season started with a sense of optimism. Amy had just achieved a major breakthrough in her career, working with some of the most challenging horses she had ever encountered. The family was more united than ever, with everyone finding their own personal victories. Ty's memory continued to hang over them all, but Amy seemed to be finding a way to navigate life without him, growing stronger each day. But as the season progressed, strange events began to unfold, events that would set the stage for the shocking turn that was about to come. It started with the little things, subtle, almost imperceptible shifts around the ranch that no one paid much attention to at first. A misplaced tool here, an unfamiliar unease in the horse's eyes, a flicker of tension in conversations that once felt effortless. At first, Amy and her family dismissed them as coincidences, fleeting moments that could be explained away. But deep down, a sense of unease began to settle over Heartland like a thickening storm cloud. The ranch, once a haven of peace and purpose, now felt different, like something unseen was lurking just beneath the surface. Amy, always the rock of stability, started to feel the weight of an unshakable tension pressing down on her. The horses, creatures she had always understood with an almost supernatural intuition, were becoming restless, unpredictable. Training sessions that once ran smoothly now ended in confusion and frustration. Even the once unbreakable bond between the family members seemed to be fraying. Amy tried to push through, convincing herself it was just stress after all. Running Heartland while carrying the weight of Ty's legacy was no small task. But as the days passed, the cracks only deepened. Lou was more preoccupied than usual, her focus constantly shifting elsewhere. Peter seemed withdrawn, as if he was carrying a burden he wasn't ready to share. And Jack, the steady foundation of them all, had grown quieter, his gaze lingering longer on the horizon, as if he, too, sensed the shift in the air. Was it just the natural ebb and flow of life, or was something much darker at play? Amy couldn't shake the feeling that Heartland was on the brink of something big, something she wasn't sure any of them were ready for. And the worst part, she had no idea what was coming next. And yet, Amy pushed forward, refusing to let anything get in her way. She was determined to hold it all together. But little did she know something much more dangerous than the daily struggles was lurking on the horizon. Then came the moment that would begin the countdown to the finale. A phone call in the middle of the night, urgent and unclear. Amy didn't recognize the voice on the other end, but the words sent a chill down her spine. You need to come to the ranch. Now, something's wrong. It's about Ty. Panic set in. She rushed out of bed and drove through the night, her mind racing with possibilities. Was there an intruder on the ranch? Was someone trying to harm her family? Or worse, was there a threat to Ty Borden's legacy that she couldn't protect? When Amy arrived, the ranch was eerily quiet. The horses were restless, and the barn door was ajar. It was clear that something had been disturbed. Inside, she found nothing but a single cryptic note pinned to the wall. The past can't stay buried. Her heart sank. This message was more than just a warning. It was a harbinger of what was to come. Something was about to unfold that no one, not even Amy, could have prepared for. As the note burned a hole in her mind, Amy was left to wonder, was this a reminder of the past? A message from a time she thought was long behind her? Or was this the first sign that something much more sinister was at play? Could the sudden shift in the energy around Heartland be leading to an unimaginable loss? The questions flooded her thoughts, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't face it alone. As the stakes grew higher, Amy would have to rely on the people she loved to uncover the truth before it was too late. The pieces of the puzzle were just beginning to fall into place, but they were scattered, and some were about to become deadly. The calm before the storm was quickly fading. The show that fans had loved for years was about to take a turn that no one could have predicted. Was Amy Fleming's fate sealed from the moment she stepped into the barn that night? Or was this just the beginning of a much more dangerous game, one that would end with the death of a beloved character, leaving fans reeling and questioning everything they thought they knew? Amy's journey was heading toward a devastating climax, but no one could guess just how close they were to the final tragic moment. The time for answers was running out. The storm was coming, and it was coming for Amy Fleming. Would she survive? As the days passed after the unsettling discovery in the barn, the tension at Heartland continued to grow. Amy's sleepless nights were becoming more frequent, her thoughts constantly returning to the cryptic message she had found. Who would send her such a threatening note? And why now? Despite the growing sense of unease, Amy did her best to keep things normal, working with the horses and trying to hold the family together. But with each passing day, the feeling of impending doom became impossible to ignore. It was no longer just a nagging thought at the back of Amy's mind. It was a suffocating weight pressing down on her chest. Then, one morning, her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID was blank, an unknown number. She hesitated, her pulse quickening. Something about this felt wrong. When she finally answered, a distorted voice filled the silence, hollow and unnervingly cold. "Amy Fleming," the voice rasped. "You think you've outrun the past, but it's catching up to you. The things you've buried, they're rising again. And this time, there's no escape." The line went dead before Amy could even react. A shiver ran down her spine as she stood frozen, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Who was this? What past were they talking about? And why did it feel so personal? She tried to brush it off, but the unease gnawed at her all day. Was this some cruel prank? Or was it a warning one she couldn't afford to ignore? The ranch, once her sanctuary, now felt foreign. The familiar warmth of home had been replaced by an unsettling chill, as if unseen eyes were watching her every move. Even the horses sensed the shift. They were restless, their usual trust in Amy now tainted by an inexplicable tension. She tried to focus, throwing herself into her work, but every rustling leaf, every creaking board felt like a whisper of danger closing in. It wasn't just Amy who noticed. Lou grew increasingly concerned, watching her sister retreat into herself, consumed by something she wouldn't talk about. Jack, the rock of their family, had seen Amy endure heartbreak and hardship before, but this was different. This wasn't grief. This was fear. And Amy was doing everything she could to hide it. One evening, desperate for clarity, Amy walked down to the river, the one place that had always given her peace. The rhythmic rush of water had comforted her through life's hardest moments. But tonight, the air was different, heavy, ominous. The wind whispered through the trees like a warning. And then, just beyond the riverbank, something moved. Amy's breath hitched. She wasn't alone. Then, she saw a shadowy figure standing on the opposite bank. For a moment, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her, but the figure didn't move. It was too still, too deliberate. Amy's heart raced as she squinted into the darkness. The figure stepped forward slowly, revealing itself. She gasped when she recognized who it was. It was someone she thought she had lost forever, someone she had never expected to see again. The figure was none other than Caleb Ty's old friend and someone who had been out of the picture for a while. Amy had always trusted Caleb, but seeing him now, standing in the dark, felt wrong. He didn't say a word at first, just watched her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy with unspoken emotion. "I never thought I'd see you here again," Amy said, trying to steady her voice. "What's going on, Caleb? Why are you here?" Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. "Amy, there's something you don't know, something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it's time. They're coming for you, and they're coming for the ranch." Amy's breath caught in her throat. "Who? Who's coming for us?" Before Caleb could respond, the sound of tires screeching on the dirt road interrupted their conversation. Amy turned quickly, startled by the sudden noise. When she looked back at Caleb, he was gone, vanished into the night as if he had never been there. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to piece together what had just happened. Had Caleb been trying to warn her? And if so, what exactly was he trying to protect her from? The message was clear, though. There was a threat. And it was coming for her and for Heartland. The storm was no longer just a feeling in the air. It was real. And it was getting closer by the minute. The next morning, Amy sat down with Lo and Jack to try and make sense of everything. She told them about Caleb's warning and the unsettling phone call. Lou was immediately on edge, urging Amy to take the threat seriously. Jack, too, seemed unusually tense, as if the mention of danger had triggered something deep within him. "I don't like this," Jack said, his voice grave. "We've been through a lot together, but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind this and fast." Amy knew Jack was right. There was no more time to waste. She couldn't ignore the warning any longer. Something big was coming, and it was threatening everything she held dear. Everything she held dear was at risk. As the family gathered, they realized that the fate of Heartland was hanging in the balance, and they had no idea how far this danger would reach. One thing was certain: if they didn't act fast, they might not have time to stop what was about to unfold. But no matter how much they prepared, Amy couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead. The storm was gathering, and when it finally broke, there would be no telling who would make it through unscathed. Would Amy survive? Would Heartland? And when the dust finally settled, who, if anyone, would be left standing? As Amy dug deeper into the secrets of her mother's past, the tension around Heartland became unbearable. Cryptic warnings turned into unsettling encounters, and strange occurrences grew too frequent to ignore. Shadows seemed to lengthen, stretching toward her like unseen hands. This wasn't just about someone from Marion's past resurfacing. This was darker, more insidious, and far more personal. The deeper she looked, the more Amy realized that her mother's history with Oliver Rhodes hadn't been just a fleeting mistake. It was the foundation of something far more sinister, a tangled web of choices and consequences that had shaped Heartland's fate for years. Marion's decisions, made in moments of desperation and trust, had unknowingly allowed Rhodes to slip through the cracks of the law. And now, after years of lurking in the shadows, he was back with unfinished business. But what did he truly want? Was his vendetta against Heartland? Or was Amy herself the ultimate target? The truth became even more chilling when Amy unearthed something unexpected, a pattern hidden in old land dispute records, linking Rhodes to a long-buried battle over Heartland and the surrounding properties. Bribes, threats, legal loopholes, everything led back to him. Heartland had never been just a ranch. It had been a prize in a much bigger game. And Amy was beginning to understand that she wasn't just caught in the crossfire, she was the final piece of the puzzle. Then came the final sign that something was about to explode. One afternoon, a lone figure appeared at the ranch gates, a man she had only ever heard of in hushed whispers. Albert Rhodes, Oliver's estranged brother. Albert had never been involved in his family's business dealings, at least not on the surface. But the moment Amy saw him, a cold dread settled in her chest. His presence wasn't just unexpected, it was a warning. He stood there silent, his gaze scanning Heartland like he already knew too much, like he had been waiting for this moment. And Amy knew, without a doubt, that whatever had been set in motion all those years ago was finally coming for her. His cryptic warnings about the past sent Amy into a spiral, leading her to realize that this conflict ran far deeper than she had ever imagined. "You don't understand, Amy," Albert said, his voice low but edged with urgency. "Your mother thought she could escape from it, but there's no escaping the past. Rhodes is coming for everything she built. And it's not just the land he wants, it's the legacy. It's you." Amy was stunned. Her heart raced as the weight of Albert's words settled in. She had thought she could protect her family and her home, but now it felt as though everything was unraveling. She couldn't shake the feeling that Rhodes had been manipulating things all along, laying the groundwork for his return, playing the long game. The pieces were finally falling into place, but the puzzle was bigger than she had ever imagined. The next few days were a blur. Every corner of Heartland felt different, tense, fragile, as though a single wrong move could set off an explosion. Amy was more cautious than ever, watching her back at every turn, aware that something was closing in on her, something she couldn't outrun. The horses seemed restless, even the ones that had always been calm and steady. Every time Amy entered the stables, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. It wasn't just paranoia. It was instinct. The danger was real. The most terrifying moment came one night when Amy was alone in the barn, trying to calm one of the more skittish horses. A shadow crossed the doorway. Amy froze. A voice called out softly from the dark, "Amy." She whipped around, heart pounding, to find a figure standing just inside the barn. The moonlight illuminated the face, and Amy's breath caught in her throat. It was Caleb. But something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. His usual calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. Before she could speak, Caleb rushed toward her, grabbing her arms in desperation. "You have to listen to me," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not over. Rhodes, he's not done with you. He's going to destroy everything. Starting with you." Amy was stunned. Caleb's urgency and fear were unlike anything she'd ever seen from him. The fact that he had come to her at this moment, knowing the risk of being caught, made it clear that something serious was going on. She tried to calm him down, to ask what he meant, but Caleb was practically incoherent. Caleb broke off, glancing nervously toward the barn doors. "I can't explain it all right now, but you need to get out of here. RADS is planning something big, something that will take everything from you. You have to leave. You're not safe here." Amy's mind raced as she processed Caleb's words. Everything they had been dealing with, the phone calls, the messages, the strange behavior from people around them, it all suddenly made sense. RHS wasn't just playing games. He was planning something far more dangerous, something that would completely destabilize Heartland, and it had everything to do with Amy. Before Amy could respond, Caleb backed away slowly, his eyes scanning the darkness. He turned and ran into the night, leaving Amy with more questions than answers. The next morning, an unshakable sense of dread clung to Amy like a shadow. Something was coming, something inevitable, unstoppable. She could feel it in the way the air seemed heavier, in the way the wind carried a whisper of something unseen. Running was no longer an option. Fighting this battle alone would only lead to disaster. No matter which way she turned, it felt as if invisible forces were closing in, trapping her in a game she never signed up to play. The pieces were already in place for a confrontation that would decide everything: the fate of Heartland, the legacy of her family, and perhaps even her own survival. But what if she wasn't strong enough to stop it? What if the storm wasn't something she could simply weather, but a force too powerful to outrun? Just like the ghosts of the past, what if this reckoning was inevitable? Every choice she made from this moment on could mean the difference between saving everything she loved or watching it all crumble around her. The stakes had never been higher. As she gazed out over the land that had been her sanctuary since childhood, Amy realized with chilling certainty the real battle hadn't even begun yet. With each passing day, the tension only grew. The world she had always trusted, the one she had built her life around, was now on the verge of collapse. Truths she had once believed to be solid were unraveling, revealing cracks she never knew existed. Secrets long buried were clawing their way to the surface, each revelation more unsettling than the last. Amy's certainty was slipping away like sand through her fingers. The deeper she dug into RHS's ties to Heartland, the clearer it became this wasn't just a battle to protect the ranch. This was personal. RHS had marked her as the centerpiece of this vendetta, and she could feel the storm closing in, ready to unleash its full fury. Lou's reassurances did little to quiet the unease gnawing at her mind. What if the danger wasn't just lurking outside, but buried deep within the people she trusted most? What if her own family, unknowingly, was entangled in the very web of secrets that had brought RHS back? "I found something," Amy whispered, sliding a weathered folder from beneath the table. The faded letters, legal documents, and scattered photographs inside weren't just remnants of the past, they were evidence. She spread them out, her pulse pounding as Lou's eyes flicked over the pages, widening with each revelation. "It's all here," Amy said, her voice edged with urgency. Every lawsuit, every backroom deal. RHS wasn't just after Heartland, he wanted complete control. And he was willing to destroy anyone who stood in his way. Lou's hands trembled as she flipped through the damning pages. "Amy, these aren't just business disputes. These are threats. People didn't just fight over land, they tried to erase each other. If this gets out, it could change everything." Amy inhaled sharply, the weight of the truth settling in her chest. The darkness that once loomed in Heartland's past hadn't just returned, it had never left. And now she had no choice but to face it.